everybody. I am Victoria for BloomBurry Radio, and I come back with Victoria in Verse show. Today we meet together Jass Aujla from Canada. Jass is a writer, novelist, and poet. She is a Libra soul and a poet's heart. Jass is the author of suspense thriller fiction Next of Twin, and she is also the regional director of the Crime Writers of Canada and the co-host of the popular One Peak Poetry on Twitter. But more about Jass, we will find out directly from her. Hello, Jass.
Hi, Victoria. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and I am very happy you accepted my invitation to be part of Victoria Universe at BloomBurry Radio and to know you better. So please introduce yourself to us. Who is Jass Aujla?
Oh, okay. Sometimes that's a hard question to ask just or to answer right on the spot, but maybe just to, kind of start off and give the listeners a little bit of history in terms of who I am. So I'm Jass. I was born in Punjab, India, and migrated to Canada with my parents when I was 2. And as a child, I loved reading. And in a way, losing myself in books really helped me escape the reality of, a difficult childhood. But reading also sparked my passion for creative storytelling. And yeah, and so today I say I'm, dual careered and very grateful to have, a budding, career in writing and all things creativity related.
How have you started to write? How have you discovered you have a talent in writing?
Yeah, so when I was 8, I wrote a short story, which essentially landed me a seat on an exclusive Canadian Young Writers Conference, and that I'm going to say essentially, this elementary school assignment became my destiny, and so from there I studied creative writing throughout high school. And I was even accepted to, my dream university, Ryerson, for a journalism program. But, unfortunately, I didn't end up going there. But I did end up going to, a different university to study business. But every chance I got, I still studied creative writing as an undergrad, and and so really from there, that's how I started, and I would say, my love in, even though I loved writing in all aspects, I always feel that poetry will always be my first love. I started writing poetry as a teenager, as an outlet to process my feelings about being in a constant tug of war between two cultures. And and so it goes, it's just kind of a reflection of my, say, like, my childhood and growing up. And I rediscovered my love for poetry and prose in 2021 when I officially opened my author account on Twitter. And my original intent with this account was to promote my yet to be published debut novel at the time. But however, I fell into the world of prompts, and the poetry community on Twitter was very welcoming and very loves to embrace other creatives, and so that kind of became the catalyst to it kind of gave me a purpose to write every day. And really since then I use I use, my Twitter account, not only to promote my now published novel, but also, just to fuel my creativity and continue my habit of writing every single day.
You said poetry was your first love.
Yeah, so I would say a lot of it was um, was a way to process my feelings. I think, when I was growing up, it was difficult, right? My parents were, they tried very hard to, give their children a life that they didn't have, and but it was very difficult for them because they came into a new country, and it was like starting all over. And so, in my teenage years, I'll be honest. When I reflect on my childhood and my teenage years, my parents were very, I'm going to say, strict, and there are things you aren't allowed to do, and so a lot of it was, so there was a lot of emotions, and I would say, probably angry emotions, and the different, and also the different range of emotions during the teenage years that I'm sure everyone has. And so essentially that found its way within my poetry, but it was also a way for me to sort of make peace and let it out, because I'm a true believer in if you keep, your emotions within you, and they can often eat at it, right? And especially if they're negative emotions of anxiety and whatnot, um, it's best to let it out. And for me, I wasn't always, in our culture, we're not always encouraged to speak up as women, and so my poetry really became that outlet of I could write anything down on paper, and yeah, and so it essentially became that outlet for me to be able to express myself and what I was thinking at the time.
I thought you would say love, because at that age we experience the first butterflies in the stomach, and we are writing about the first love, then the first hug, the first kisses, then the first tears from love. But you were deeper than that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so I don't want to, yes, I wrote about love too. Who doesn't write about love? I think I still write about love. And I guess I mean, is it okay if I maybe do a reading and then we can maybe talk about the poem? Would that could sort of help? Because it's sometimes hard when I'm also trying to remember, like, when I was a teenager and I was writing, like, I can't really remember, like, I don't actually have those journals anymore, right? And so it's interesting because when I would write during my teenage and early, my early 20s, I would literally fill, every year I would have a journal, and I would fill it with whatever my thoughts were, my poetry, and being able to, process that. But then also at the end of the year, what I would do is I would actually give it to someone who was special to me during that time. And yeah, and so I actually never kept any of my own journals. And so, it's it's so it's a little difficult to be like, oh, this is what I wrote of, and this is the poem. But when I believe it was last year, Gabriella had pull up, Gabriella from Literary Revelations. She had put a call out for, an anthology that she was putting together around, around childhood and childhood memories and childhood experiences. And so, two of my poems are actually published in that anthology. The first poem, if I may read it, it's called Almost Four, and it was exclusively written for and published in Hidden in Childhood by Literary Revelations, and it was released in January 2023. And so, really, this poem is autobiographical in a way, and it's sort of my attempt, to process some traumatic early childhood experiences. And yeah, so maybe I'll read it and then we can maybe talk about it afterwards if you have any questions.
That's why I wanted to ask you about your childhood, because I know that you are one of the contributors of this beautiful anthology, Hidden in Childhood, by Gabriela Marie Milton. And you can read for us one of these poems.
Okay, yeah, I will start. Almost Four. It's the one that stands out the most in vivid shades of sepia against the grainy hues of almost 4 years lived, running through the back lane of Brazil Street. Oh, Daddy, you look so tired. And I'm your biggest, smallest fan. The way you carry me on your shoulders in one swell swoop, my wondrous hero. Flash forward only a few months when I limp into the doctor's office, breaks of limb and bone fresh in my brain, you denying accusations, convincing the doctors of made up stories in my head. 46 years pass, blocked from memory, the foundation of her story.
Beautiful, Jazz. And
Thank you.
please, can you tell us if have you healed the scars from the childhood?
Yeah, it's a, a very difficult question to answer, because I wonder sometimes, do we ever heal from the scars that within our entire life? Yeah, but I have in a way made my peace with with those scars, and yeah, I for me, as reminders of the compassion that's always available within our own hearts, and the ability to be better and do better than what was done to us.
Sorry that maybe my question was very personal. But sometimes speaking about these traumas and these bad experiences in our lives help us. And have you noticed if poetry help you to go on in life, and to see in a different way the life, the beauty of life? So is poetry for you a healing?
Uh, yes, it very much is. It is, a form to be able to heal myself, because it's, the words and the stories, for me to see them on the page, does give, them sort of existence, and acknowledges that pain and those scars. And uh, like I was saying before, so when you keep those things inside, they can truly eat you up inside. And so really, for me, poetry has given me that outlet to be able to, express things that, as I was living, and as I was experiencing those things, obviously as a child going through abuse, you really don't know how to process it, and and so really, as I've grown up as an adult, being able to put it on paper and really just seeing it there and being able to have it there is in a way part of the healing process. But it is difficult to talk about, right? Because when it is out there, and obviously the reader wants to know more, right? Will just naturally, and I think that's just at least that's how I am, right? If I read something and I tend to dig a little bit more into wanting to know a little bit more. And if it's something that if it's a news article, I'll go and I'll do a little bit more research, and I'll read more. And so sometimes, going back to the poetry, it is in a way subjective as well. So for the reader, if they can relate to it, then and in a way, heal find some sort of solace in that. I feel that then I've done sort of I've done it justice in sort of two forms. One, that I've well, I've allowed myself to be able to acknowledge that pain of that experience that I write about, and then also be able to have it there. But then if it resonates with other individuals who have maybe experienced the same thing, it kind of gives hope as well, right? And so even like even though I write daily based on a prompt word, the poems are still based on my own experiences, and sometimes it's yeah, and sometimes it's raw stuff that has just come up because it's been triggered by a word, and sometimes it's triggered by memories.
I think memories are good to be kept because they are part of our life. Some of them maybe we didn't realize then, but looking um, forward, we realized that we became stronger. And you choose poetry as a form of tell your stories.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Let's stop for a song. And
Mhm.
I noticed you have chosen two wonderful singers who are firstly poets, not only singers and songwriters. One of them is Leonard Cohen,
Mhm.
and you have chosen his song If It Be Your Will. Please just tell me why Leonard Cohen and why this song?
So I love I love poets, as as you can see. Some of the songs really that resonate with me. Um, start from that lyrical poetic stance. And when I was growing up, my favorite thing to do was to be in driving in my car, and listening to music. So kind of grown up all pretty much my whole life, and I still when I do get in the car, I always turn up the music. And one of the things that always catches me, one is the music, but it's the lyrics that really often speak to me. And when I was a teenager, I think I kind of found an abandoned Leonard Cohen book. Was probably like, I was probably 19 and was first year university, and somebody had been reading a Leonard Cohen, one of his poetry books, and had left it behind, didn't put it back on the shelves. And I kind of started flipping through it, and there was it was words that were new to me, or like his poetry was new to me, but it also in a way resonated, but it was also very in a way very plain language, but then very lyrical and very and really made you think of, okay, what is he really talking about here? And yeah, and so I love all his music, but I did pick this one. I can't really, again, just for the quality of the lyrics. There's something about them that speak to me.
Leonard Cohen is
Yeah.
fabulous. I can't say was fabulous because is fabulous. He's still alive for everything he left us. Let's listen to this song, this beautiful song, and then we'll return to our conversation.
Okay.
Of your sign.
I do, wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. Definitely, the balance aspect. Like I think I've mentioned that, I have, I'm dual careered, and so it's definitely been interesting, balancing a professional career, and being an author and a writer, and so I find the balance aspect is absolutely, true, I guess, to my nature, my Libra nature. Yeah.
So Jess, you were born in India. What do you remember from India? Do you have memories living in India?
Well, interesting enough, I was born in India, and I migrated to Canada with my parents when I was 2 years old, and actually had not been back to India. My first trip was when I was 25, and my childhood memories of were all of Canada. I didn't remember the first 2 years of my life in India, but it's strange, because I felt like there were times that I had, in my teenage years and growing up, I've had dreams, and I didn't really know what to make of them. But when I was 25 and I first, was an adult and seeing India and meeting my grandparents, on my dad's side for the very first time in my life. I felt like, some of those vague dreams that I had, of like, certain parts and whatnot, that, the puzzle pieces in terms of my mind kind of like, fit, because it was like, oh, it kind of felt like, when I was dreaming, of certain things, like I wasn't sure, like, it felt very comfortable, but at the same time I wasn't sure what those were. And yeah, and so so long long story short, to answer your question, I don't have
So
childhood
you
memories of in India, but I have, I have memories when I was 25, and it was, it was very different.
have you returned to India?
So the very first time I visited India was when I was 25, and it was for my brother's wedding, and at that time, and yeah, and so I was there for believe about 4 to 5 weeks, and then I returned, maybe in 2012. So I've been to India a total of 3 times in my life. When I was born, when I was 25, and about 2012 was what, 13 years ago, about, or 12 years. Good, no, I can't do the math right now. But yeah,
So
yeah.
you still have relatives in India.
Yeah, I well, my at the time, when I was 25, yeah, my grandparents on my dad's side were still alive at that time. They have since passed, and most of like, my parents, my siblings, my family, are in Canada, so I don't have a lot of ties personally back home. But my partner, who I did end up, meeting when I was 25, and we got married. He still has some family relatives there as well.
Can you please read for us again another of your poems? And then I have another questions for you.
Sure, sure. How about I read maybe one more from the Hidden in Childhood
Yes,
anthology?
please.
Okay, so this one is called From the Back Seat. And it, again, it's a reflection of my lived childhood experiences, but it also, in a way, speaks to, you know, the nativity of us being children, and to sort of how we're naive to the toxic behavior of adults.
Please, Jess.
From the back seat, we are going to die. The words, laced with mommy's fear, swim through my head as daddy clutches the steering wheel of our 1981 Pontiac Bonneville. He expertly weaves through the midnight traffic like he's done this before. New Year's Eve, past midnight now, streets littered with confetti, partygoers all darting home. His bloodshot eyes catch mine in the rear view mirror. He winks as if to say, we have angels at our door, protecting us always.
I love the ending of your poem because I believe in angels.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. Me too. That last line, is a belief that I've held very, sort of near and dear to my heart as well. I truly believe that, we are protected by angels. And yeah, and I, specifically feel that, sometimes when I look back at my childhood, or just my life, and sometimes just being maybe not doing the right thing, or getting myself into trouble, and or thinking about, oh wow, like I did that and could have, like, put myself in danger, but everything was okay. And so I truly believe that um I have angels protecting me. It was interesting. I actually, a few years ago, I had gone to was a karmic life reader, and uh, she was like, intuitive, and it was for a reading. And so she had, during the reading, she had actually had said to me that, she goes, oh, I feel that there's I see a family member, a woman, who is by you, and she's always by you. And she goes, it's possibly a grandmother. And I asked her, at that time, both of my grandmothers had passed, and so I did ask her which grandmother, if she knew which one it was. And she had actually said, oh, it felt like, the vibrations felt like, from my mother's side. And it's interesting because I had never met my grandmother. I'm sure she met me when I was a child, but when my parents moved to Canada, my mom actually hadn't been back to India, and her mother passed away. And so I still remember, when she had gotten the phone call, and I think I was about 12 at that time. And I still remember, how obviously devastated my mom was. And her almost her biggest regret was that she never um, had a chance to see her mom since she had come to Canada, and that she had passed away, and it was almost like 10 years since she had seen her. So yeah, and so I do often feel that my grandmother's is always with me. And I think when I had gone for that karmic reading. And for her to say that, it was almost like a confirmation of something that I had already known pretty much all my life. Sometimes, I always have words in my head, and they're coming to me, and sometimes I don't know where they come from, but I know if I don't put them down on paper, or put them into my phone, I will lose them. And so I've always tried to make that a practice of just not waiting for time, for when I have the time to just just to scribble something down, and then be able to, because those things, those moments and those words, I truly believe they come from the atmosphere, and they come from the universe. And it's a way to honor them by writing them down, and they become seeds, of the bigger things that you want to express.
It is enough just to have talent to write, or you need more till studying creative writing. So why do you need creative writing if you have talent in writing?
Well, well, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't do something with it, then it's wasted talent. Yeah. So it's a great question, because I've always wanted to be a writer. When I was, since I was a child, since I was 8 years old, and I wrote that first little short story that won me an award. When I walked into that room, at that conference at 8, I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. But there's always sometimes a fear of, like, are people going to think I'm good enough, or am I good enough? And sometimes I find that we, as just humans, are probably most critical on ourselves. And yeah, and so, like I said earlier, I always had this dream. I always wanted to do this, but it probably took me like almost 45 years to actually do it. Because I was always feeling like, oh, when I have the time, or this is more important. Work and making money for the family is more important. Raising the kids is more important. And you tend to, as I feel like I was raised in a culture where you, as a woman, are having to make all those sacrifices for others around you. And yeah, and in a way, it's me putting, giving myself that space, and the time to focus on writing, and actually just doing it, has probably been the biggest gift that I could give myself. And in a way, poetry is given to me.
You are right. Except Twitter. So can you tell us your Twitter account, and also you are the co-host of the popular One Peak Poetry on Twitter. Please tell us more about this
Yeah,
in few
yeah.
words.
So yeah, absolutely. I'll just say my handle, but pretty much, on Twitter, on Instagram, and most of the social media is the same. It's at by Jass Aujla, so BY, and then Jass, Jass Aujla. And that's how you can find me on social media. And then my website is jassaujla.com. If you just type Jass Aujla, Jassaujla, author, and in Google, and that will pretty much bring bring my website up. All of my all of the anthologies, as well as my debut suspense thriller novel. You can get the direct links on my website. and order any of them from there. And yeah, and so you mentioned the one
Yes.
pick poetry prompt. So I am the co-host of that prompt. My host or my partner, Martin, he actually approached me. I think it was late last year. It was a prompt that was already, up and running, and he would post a pick pretty much every week. And I, was using it as one of my prompts. So, I would, see a pick and then, and then write a poem that would accompany that pick. And I was kind of one of those diligent poets every week that I would write. And then he actually approached me through social media and asked if I wanted to be the co-host. And so I've been actively doing that. We post, a pick pretty much every Saturday, and then from the account, any of the poems that our wonderful artists and poets find us and write. And very grateful because it's just been in a way for me to give back, right, to the poetry community, and be able to in a way inspire and support other fellow writers.
So, how do you find people online, and also people face to face? So, there is any difference between meeting people online and meeting people face to face?
Yeah. Huge difference. I would think. It's hard to
Okay.
know who is who online, right? It's very difficult. I am one of those. I'll be honest. I am one of those individuals. Like, if you follow me, I will. I will kind of look at your account. I will see, what kind of things you post, and make that conscious, decision of whether I'm going to follow the individual back. Because I find that, with social media, there is that ability to be anonymous, and you don't really know who people are, and yeah, and so I'm very, very mindful, I would say very careful. When you meet someone in person, you kind of can, you see them and you get to actually talk to them face to face and get to know them, and perhaps in that, um in that physical environment, you're able to, really get to know them, opposed to just meeting them through online channels and not knowing, anything about them. And it's very, say, social media is has amped the ability to be whoever you want to be, which sometimes is a good thing, but then sometimes it's not, because it does bring out individuals who maybe prey on vulnerable people. Yeah.
I was happy and lucky to meet beautiful, beautiful
Yes.
people
Yeah.
on poetry community on Twitter, and I wanted to make a link to the next song, your one of your favorite songs called "People Are Strange," and to agree with Jim Morrison, if the people are strange when you are stranger, or if their faces look ugly when they don't know you, and maybe when they just see you for the first time, or until they get to know you. So what do you say?
Yeah.
Are
Yes.
people strange when you
Uh,
are stranger?
I, yeah, I see the connection. Yeah, I mean, just to start off, like, again, Jim Morrison, The Doors, when I would be, when I was driving when I was a teenager, and one of the stations. Like, we didn't get like my very old car in the late 80s didn't get all the radio stations, and it actually got a couple of stations where the music was really, really old, relative to, when I was a teenager. But I would still, I'd be like, I don't have a choice. And so that's actually how I discovered The Doors and Jim Morrison. And I actually ended up reading, Jim Morrison's autobiography when I was a late teen as well. And just kind of discovered his knack for lyrical, poetic words. But he was also one where, he didn't sugarcoat things. And People Are Strange is a reflection of that, right? And it's kind of and it kind of speaks to, yeah, people are strange, but then who are we to say what's normal and what's strange, right? And so it's kind of like his way to say, yeah, people are strange when you're a stranger, you're yourself. But yeah.
Let's listen to Jim Morrison and The Doors, People Are Strange, and then we will come back for the last question. Hello, I'm Victoria for BloomBurry Radio. You are listening to Victoria in Verse. My guest today is coming from Canada, Jass Aujla. And Jass, I used to ask my guests what is poetry for them. So, Jass, what is poetry for you?
Yeah. Wow. That
I know
I
it
would,
is very.
yeah, a very difficult question, Victoria. Never really gave it much thought. Or asked to, define what is poetry, but I would say that, for me, it's poetry is a reflection of who I am. It's an outlet for me to be able to process my emotions, but also a way to express my personality and express, my unique perspective. Yeah,
And if I ask you to give me just one word to describe poetry, so poetry is
creativity.
very beautiful creativity. Just. It
Mm-hmm.
was such a pleasure to meet you today and to have this beautiful conversation about your love for poetry and in general for writing. And I don't want to let you go without reading for us again.
Okay, absolutely. So what would you like to hear? Because I think there were, I know I read a couple of the childhood ones. I can maybe read. Maybe what I'd like to do is maybe read one from the From One Line to Another anthology.
Please, you
And
can read for us as many poems do
okay,
you want to read or
okay. So I'll read. So this poem, I've titled "Keep This One Quiet." It is from the From One Line anthology. Sorry, it's from the fifth From One Line anthology. And this anthology was different because it challenged creatives, not with just one prompt line but two. And so the mission was essentially to use the same opening, or the given opening line and the given closing line, and then basically you're weaving your own brand of poetic magic in between. Keep this one quiet for as long as you can, but the pressure to create and to be creative has hit the wall of pallid, waning inspiration. I long to leave these hopes and dreams by the roadside, abandon them without remorse for what could have or should have been. I let ancient poetry steep in my mind, letting it boil to the rim before feeling the irky tingle of freedom. No more shall I be caged in thought, wearing rusted chains of apathy. Yet wherever I go, the elephant travels for free.
So beautiful. Wherever
Thank
I
you.
go, the elephants travel in freedom.
Yeah.
So you believe in a world in which freedom to be the master, to rule the world, freedom and peace and
Yes.
beauty and understanding. You are such a beautiful person, such a beautiful poet and writer, just, and it was such a pleasure that I had the opportunity to meet you and to have this conversation and to share your poetry with BloomBurry Radio listeners. And at the end of our conversation, I have a song for you describing you through a song.
Oh.
So you are a Libra soul, a
Hmm.
poet's heart, and the
Hmm.
song is called A Poet's Heart, and it is by Westlife. And
Uh-huh.
they say in this song, I'm living with a poet's heart, then all the lights turn on, and I'm never gonna stop. And as the
Wow.
words come out, it's because you lit the spark. You're a priceless, timeless, precious work of art. So this is my
Wow.
message for you, and this is my description. With these words in mind, I want to end our conversation. You just are a priceless work of art, and go on writing because you are doing very, very well. I wish you all the best, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria, for having me on the show. It was an amazing opportunity and a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
When did I lose my